So we're going to break down all the cues and in-depth nuances to the bench press. This is not how I typically cue it. You don't chuck 1,000 cues at them at once, but we're going to break it down just to be thorough for the purpose of this video. So the first thing to start off with is Brick. I just want you to sit on the end of the bench here. Okay, sit on the end of the bench, and I want you to get in a position like you're squatting, like a foot position like you're squatting. So your knees, talking about the feet width, about a bit wider than hip width apart, and I want your feet slightly under your knees so we can get more glute recruitment. Then I want you to lie back, just comfortably. You don't have to grip the bar, just lie back. Now, bring your feet closer under. Now, very important. Bench press ain't just an upper body movement. It's a full body movement if you're doing it right. The glutes should be engaged. If your glutes aren't switched on while you're doing the bench press, you are leaking energy and losing potential strength gains. So, how I test that? I slap his knees. All right, if they can move too much, then I know the glutes aren't switched on and there's a bit of instability. So the glutes should be on, squeezed, right? And you can help better facilitate that by putting the feet further under, because we close this angle off, we get more glute recruitment compared to extending it, we get more hamstring recruitment. So that's one position that's very important. The next is the shoulder blade position. What a great cue that Joe Defranco gave in the CPPS certification is pull the shoulder blades down and back towards your hip pockets. So that's what I want to emphasize right here. And this creates a nice packed shoulder position where you can launch. You have like a launching pad. The back is the launching pad of the bench press, which is why pulling movements are so critical to developing a stronger, bigger bench and more robust shoulder glenohumeral joint. Anyway, we help set the scapula, help create that foundation, that foundation of stability. So the glutes, the shoulder blades, and the upper back. Eyes approximately in line with the shoulders, approximately in line with the barbell, so we can clear the barbell over and not clip the barbell holders here. So the next position I want Brick to get in is I want him to grip the bar thumb width away from the smooth. It's going to be slightly different for everybody. This is not a one size fits all. This is just a rough guide, neutral pronated grip that we use as a general guide. It's going to depend on limb length and a whole bunch of other factors. So from here, we need to create irradiation. Radiation, think about creating stability at the joint by recruiting the musculature. And we can do that by squeezing the shit out of the bar. We don't just want to squeeze it, we want to squeeze it inwards so then we can recruit. So you already came off the bar a little bit, so that means we're creating tension. Squeezing the bar inwards, and I'll talk about that later when we do the lift. Before we press the bar off, I want Brick to create a brace. We would have already talked about this and taught this before. We're not teaching it here. So before you press it off, Brick, I want you to take a breath in. On the exhale, create the brace, and then press the barbell off the rack. Good. And that's very important because if there's a lot of weight on here, you need to be in a stable position with a brace. Otherwise, you're going to leak energy. It's going to be unstable and unsafe pressing 60, 70, 80, 100, 200 kilos off the barbell right there. Now, before he lowers it down, I want him approximately, so you can bring that barbell a little closer forward, so approximately in line with the nipple line or slightly underneath it. That's where we're going to lower it to. You get too far into flexion, you put a lot of strain through the anterior side of the shoulder joint. And that's not what we want here. We want more pec recruitment. So from here, Brick is squeezing the bar together inwards. The lats are internal rotators, medial rotators. So what are we doing? Squeezing inwards, okay? Glutes switched on. Before he lowers down, he creates a brace. He's gonna lower down, 3-second hold. Then you're just gonna hover the barbell above the shirt crease. So it's not resting against the shirt, it's hovering above the shirt crease. So you should slightly feel just grazing your shirt there. And then you're gonna press up with intent. Good, hold, press up, squeeze. Good, but not too much intent where we lose position, but enough where we can produce force and move the weight quickly, okay? Now we're gonna go through another set of reps here. So squeeze the bar, control down. Elbows on a 45-degree angle, driving up. Maintaining that position. There's another small cue I'm gonna chuck in there as well. Rick, I want you to press the back of your head into the bench. So we're recruiting these cervical extensors, because a lot of people's heads jar up off the bench. So a way to do that and create stability and more irradiation through the body is press the back of your head through the bench. It's a great cue, especially on the concentric phase. Drop down, full body tension, control, press and squeeze up. And then you can rack it up and drop down. Not a perfect position, right? It's something we work on. Like some people may say, oh, his elbows might have been a bit too wide. Yeah, maybe. So we'll re-cue that, we'll readdress that, and we can slightly change certain things to help bring the elbows in slightly. But other than that, that would be the comprehensive guide and cueing to the barbell bench press. It's not the only way to do it. It's just one method to do it. Powerlifters might have another way. An Olympic lifting coach might have another way. Thank you, Brick. I appreciate it. Thank you to Joe Defranco and Jim Smith. Hope this video was appropriate and gets me full marks right here. Thank you. All right, guys, we're going to do a comprehensive breakdown of the barbell back squat with the man himself, Mr. Worldwide, Christian Woodford. It's very hard to get him to do this, so we borrowed 6 minutes of his time to show Christian Woodford how to squat and how we teach a novice. Now, I'm going to throw a lot of cues. It's very comprehensive. This is not how we would teach it to a novice. You're not throwing them 1,000 cues at the start and try and be a hero. So, put that aside. The first thing I'm going to get Christian to do is we're going to position the bar so when they place it underneath, they're in this quarter squat position so they can pop off the bar off the rack. Now, Christian, you're going to grab the barbell thumb width away from the smooth. You're going to squeeze the bar. Now, here's a great cue I got from Mr. Joe Defranco.
Death grip.
I think you'll like this.
Death grip.
Not that one.
White knuckles. Anything else?
That's one too.
White knuckles.
Well, to get in position, I want you to imagine like you're doing
lat pull down. Am I right?
a reverse lat pull down.
It's a lat pull down, but a reverse lat pull down.
A reverse lat pull down. Pull the elbows back. Squeeze the shoulder blades together.
Tension to the upper back.
Yeah, tension to the upper back. Create a cushion through your traps. So your traps are going to create like a shelf. Okay, so that's the first thing I want you to do here. And then after you create that shelf, you're going to brace. Now this assumes we've already taught them how to brace off the platform. So you're going to, because imagine like 60, 100, 200 kilos on the bar, you're going to need to brace to get this weight off safely. I like a split stance, squeezing together. If you need a wider grip with your hands because of poor shoulder mobility, that is acceptable too. Squeezing the bar, create the shelf, brace, step 1 foot back, the second foot back, just 2 steps. You don't need to walk out, waste all this energy and lose position. Now, squeezing the bar, we're going to create tension through the whole body. Squeeze the bar. Typically we kick the shoes off, but that's not what I'm doing right now, but typically we would, and the socks as well. You're going to squeeze the bar, elbows underneath. You're going to create torque at the hips by rotating your feet into the floor. Then you're going to create just a soft hip hinge before you brace and lower down. A soft hip hinge to push the hips back and drop down. Now, when you re-rack it, you make sure you hit the bar evenly. You're not coming in all wonky. Now, we need a box, Christian Woodford. Reason we got a box, typically for novices, they have very poor motor control, and 2, it gives them a guide for consistent reps, okay? So, now, Christian, can you re-rack that? I want to emphasize, start extended, yeah, then reverse lat pull down, nice. Squeeze the shoulder blades together, squeeze the bar, create the brace, 1 step back, then the other foot comes. I can come here and adjust it. Now, on my cue, I want you to squeeze your glutes to stabilize the pelvis and set position. Squeezing the bar hard, you're gonna imagine like you're screwing your feet into the floor, squeeze the upper back together, so a full connected chain of tension. Then, you're gonna create a soft hip hinge, push your hips back slowly, drop down to the box, 2-second hold on the box, and then press up. See, deload it a little bit. You can do that as a variation. I prefer just hovering above the box for 2 seconds and then driving up, squeezing the glutes, locking out, resetting, re-breath, which is doing well. He's bracing here. Keeping the eyes on a fixed position so we're not losing position with our neck. And then using external cues like driving your feet through the floor, jump through the floor. So then we can get speed on the bar, recruit high threshold, fast twitch motor units quickly. Good. There we go. Thank you, Christian Woodford. Thank you, Smitty, Joe. He's coming soon. Get ready.
Whoa. Get ready.
Get ready. I'm gonna break down how I teach the conventional barbell deadlift. Now, we're imagining like we've already shown Brick and I've already demoed it beforehand, and I'm gonna go through all the cues that I use, breaking down the nuances of every portion of the movements. This will be an in-depth review and summary of the conventional barbell deadlift. Now, this is not how I would teach it ordinarily. I'm not throwing out 1,000 cues to someone at the start. However, for the purpose of this video, we're going to go through all of them here instead of one by one over the weeks, over the sets. Now, first thing I'm gonna get Brick to do is walk to the bar. He's gonna walk to the bar, getting his shins touching or just a centimeter away. Now, he's gonna stand tall, place your hands on your thighs. Then, and also, this also assumes he knows how to brace as well, because we would have already taught that. Place his hands on his thighs, Brick, then you're gonna push your hips back as you roll your hands down your thighs. Once you get to your knees, you're gonna place your hands on the outside of your shins and again, roll them down to the bar. And you're just gonna grip the bar, thumb width away from the smooth, okay? Thumb width away from the smooth part of the bar. Now, many very important cues. I want him to squeeze the bar so he's got white knuckles. We've got to create irradiation and tension through the forearm, the shoulder, create stability there. Then we have to think about creating a neutral spine here. So we prefer a more trunk horizontal, vertical shin type position. Doesn't have to be perfectly that, but that's the emphasis we have so we can recruit the posterior chain more instead of making it, give me a quad dominant pattern, Brick. Give me powerlifting style quad dominant. See, I want to try to get out of that position. Now let's lift the hips up. Good. Actually drop them slightly. I'm trying to find it and fit it within the individual, not force them in a position, okay? Then, I want Brick to squeeze his shoulder blades together, squeeze the bar inwards, right? Like you're breaking the bar inwards. Get back into the position again. So to kind of teach this all at once, I don't want to throw everything at once. So let's drop down into the position. Good, same position. Squeeze the bar inwards, break the bar inwards. I want you to create torque at your hips. So what that means, I want you to imagine screwing your feet into the floor. Okay, now we're creating stability through the hips. Squeezing the shoulder blades together. Now, before you press through the ground, I want you to make sure you're pulling the bar into you the whole time, so to make sure the bar doesn't come away from you. And as you stand up, not yet, you're gonna leg press the floor away from you. And then, on my call, tension, create a brace. First breath sets the position, second breath sets the brace, create a brace. Press. Squeezing, locking the glutes at the top, standing tall. Then you're gonna reverse the movement, roll the bar down your thighs, control down, drop it down once you get to your shins. He's very good at listening. He listens. That's why you gotta be super careful about cues, because that's not exactly what I wanted from my brain. What I wanted was him to continue to roll it down. But dropping it isn't the worst thing in the world from that knee position. We're gonna go through real time. I'm gonna get Brick to walk up against the barbell. And another thing is that to be thorough, what you can do is you can get the athlete to brace in this position here. So Brick, before you lower down, I can get you to create a brace here, then lower down, and then reset that position so you kind of come into the position in a stable manner, right? Already in a braced position, and then you can re-brace before you press through the floor. Another thing I omitted that I'm gonna add in here, we didn't take the slack out of the bar. There's a lot of cues here for a very thorough quality deadlift. We're gonna go through 6 reps here, but the slack out of the bar means if there's 40 kilos on here, I'm squeezing the bar and I'm taking 39 kilos out without lifting it off the floor. You're gonna often hear a little click out of the bar. So if Brick ties it all together, squeeze the bar inwards, screws your feet into the floor, takes the slack out of the bar, then braces, squeezes the shoulder blades together, gets proper position, then creates a brace. Then you're gonna leg press through the floor, Brick. Good. Then you're gonna lower down. You can roll that bar down your thighs and down your shins as well, just like you normally do. He's listening to me perfectly, just like you normally do. All right. And you can reset and stand back up, or you can stay in that bottom position. So we're gonna roll through another 5 reps here, Brick. Squeeze that bar, press through. Find that position again. So we're treating every rep as a single rep, okay? Making sure he finishes tall and doesn't overextend at the spine, so he's locking down his glutes, squeezing his glutes to stabilize at his pelvis and get, obviously, glute recruitment, very important for this movement right here. So, squeeze, slack, press through the floor. For the next 2 reps, Brick, what you can do is, instead of just dropping it down, just roll it down your thighs, roll it down your shins. Cool? All right, very good. And another thing to add in, his feet position approximately hip width apart. We find that when the joints are stacked, it's one of the most efficient biomechanical ways to produce force into the ground. But it's gonna be slightly different for everybody. There's no cookie cutter right here. You see there, he didn't roll his hands down his thighs, Brick. We've got to keep, that's not what he naturally does, but it's what we naturally teach. There you go, better. And then when I'm coaching, I'm giving 1 or 2 cues. I don't want to throw everything at them at once. Hold it down. There we go. And you can also keep your hands gripped onto the bar as well. You don't have to reset. So Brick, show us what that looks like. Always keeping hands on the bar. So that's an example of a create tension, squeeze, and roll it down. And then he's resetting from that position now. So that's another option you can do as well. Not bad. Rest. So that's an example of breaking down a conventional barbell deadlift. We don't often teach that immediately. We teach like a progression of variations of movements from the RDL to a suitcase deadlift with the kettlebells, with the sumo kettlebell deadlift, rack pulls. There's a whole bunch of variations we do beforehand, before getting to the ground-based movement, which requires the most amount of mobility at the ankles, knees, and hips. And also dependent on lever length as well. You got really long levers, you're gonna struggle in a position like this. You might need to place it on some blocks. Breathing mechanics. A lot of people breathe inefficiently, ineffectively up into their chest. I'm gonna break down how I teach breathing, proper efficient breathing mechanics with Bianca here. And so actually quite a few of you asked me, this is what I do at the end of every session with myself and with my athletes at the end to help facilitate recovery. So Bianca's never done this with him before, so this is new-ish to her as well. So the position is important first. Bianca, I want you to get your arms externally rotated, palms up to the ceiling. I want to try and keep the neck long, and I'm keeping the feet on the ground so I can help create a stable base through our pelvis. And we're starting in a supine position because the ground gives us stability. So it's the most basic, simple position to start with. Now from here, I'm just going to observe. I just want you to breathe normally, Bianca, and from here, I'm just going to observe. I don't want to bias them in any way towards how I want them to breathe, because I need to make a fair assessment of how they're breathing, okay? And especially if they've just finished a high-intensity session, heart rate's jacked up, it's going to expose their breathing mechanics pretty quickly. Now from here, I'm going to place, could you get your arms a little further out? Because I'm going to place my hands underneath, because I want to see if she's breathing circumferentially, 3D, okay? And from here, I'm gonna place my hands around you, Bianca, and I want you, as you inhale, I want you to imagine like you're inflating a balloon against my hands, okay? So that's the first thing I'm gonna do. So as you inhale, inflate against my hands. As you exhale, just drop down. Good. Inhale against my hands, belly breath, drop down. Nice. One more time. Relax. And so what I'm looking for is if she can not only get the inhale through the abdominals, but through the external internal obliques outwards. And then lastly, I want to see if she can breathe through her back. The multifidus is an important muscle through the core, partly responsible for breathing efficiently. Now, what I want you to do, Bianca, is repeat that breath again. I'm going to place the hands underneath the lower back while I'm keeping a hand to the front. Relax. Good. Breathe into my bottom of the hand, into the floor. There you go. Nice. Relax. Drop down. Breathe into the floor. Relax. Good. Now, we don't just want a belly breath. I want full breath from the bottom to the top. So from there, after you've done that, because you can finish your session like that, just deep diaphragmatic belly breathing. The next step would be to link it in a chain, like a flow, or a tidal wave breath as they call it. So the next thing I want you to do, Bianca, is, not yet, but you're gonna breathe through your belly, middle chest, upper chest. So it's gonna be like a wave or like a chain, okay? So I'm gonna be hands there for the belly. So breathe in, belly, middle, upper, good. And then when you drop down, it all just relaxes at once. The simplest way to do it is just get everything to drop down at once, instead of complicating it and trying to reverse the movement at the start anyway. So relax down, belly, middle, upper, all drop down. So that's the tidal wave breath, and the next progression, once they've built that foundation, you can do next time is that we're gonna reverse the movement on the exhale. So you go belly, middle, upper, and you might see the shoulders press into the floor as well, which is an important cue. So it's not just breathing through your chest, it's breathing through your back as well, pressing those shoulders into the floor through the breath, inflating the back. The next thing is that you're gonna go belly, middle, upper, and upper, middle, belly. So you reverse the wave, okay? Let's go. Belly, middle, upper, right, exhale, up, middle, bottom, okay? That's more challenging. That's kind of more what they teach in like my yoga teacher training. That's what they emphasized a lot. Full diaphragmatic breathing. You can even go belly, middle, upper, then you can reverse it and go belly, and like say, back to the same way, belly, middle, upper on the exhale. There's a lot of different ways that you can teach it, but the point is to build the foundation of breathing, or efficient breathing mechanics, is to get out of chest breathing, which can cause all type of dysfunction through the posture, shoulders, and scapula, and get into a full, deep diaphragmatic breath that can help facilitate recovery at the end of the session. If you're still finding that they struggle with this, put their feet up against the wall, and that'll help give them more feedback against the floor, and also help blood flow down to the rest of the body if they're very tired as well. That's how I finish most of my sessions. So there you go, Jim and Joe. There's your supine breathing mechanics for you. I hope that was valuable for you guys. Thank you, Bianca, I appreciate it. Done. I'm gonna be breaking down the hip hinge and all the progressions and regressions that we use here. So the hip hinge is obviously a fundamental movement pattern that most people use. RDLs, deadlifting, most people do that who train or weight train. But a lot of them don't understand the progressions, regressions associated with and the different variations that you can do in your program to cycle in and out. And if you're coaching, hey, oh man, there's certain variations that, man, they're just really hard to teach for some people. They just don't work. So we're gonna be breaking down the very first basic variation that we do, and that is nothing works, right? Say, like, man, I can't teach this, it's not working. I've got a junior kid, he's 10 years old, he's just not understanding the position. Try this, kneeling position. Most basic, one of the most basic variations you can do. Hands on your thighs. All you're gonna do is ask them to sit back on their heels as they roll their hands down their thighs. Then you just ask them to sit up. And that's when you can cue, obviously, glute activation, squeeze glutes. So very simply, sit your heels back, and if you notice, we're teaching them a very basic neutral position through just like 20, 30 degrees of movement here. The next one, if that doesn't work, and even if they're like, what if they're flexing for still, it's still not working? Okay, that's fine, fair enough. What you're gonna do is you're gonna get 1 foot length away from the wall, hands on your thighs. You're just gonna push your hips back to the wall. That's all you're gonna tell. Just Johnny, Jim, Jane, all I want you to do is push your hips back to the wall. As soon as you touch the wall, hold there and stand up. And my hands are always on my thighs as a guide, because what are we gonna have here eventually? We're gonna have load here, we're gonna have a dumbbell, barbell, and we need to make sure we're always keeping that close to our center of mass. So that is there for patterning and for just a general good habit. So pushing the hips back towards the wall, feet under the hips, and then if you want to progress it, you just take the feet out further, and then your hips are gonna go back further. You're gonna get more hamstring recruitment, okay? Next one, they're even struggling with that. Use a dowel. Most people know this one, okay? So this one ain't new. What you're gonna do, 3 points of contact from the head, upper back, coccyx, okay? Same starting position, squeeze the glutes to set the pelvis, push the hips back, keeping minimal knee bend. As you rock, push those hips back until you feel recruitment and a stretch to your hamstring. I feel it right there, but your athlete might need to get there, even lower, right? You might need to get more of a horizontal torso. As you stand up, squeeze the glutes. Next pattern, one of Christian Woodford's favorites right here is a band pull through. You're gonna grab the band in between just underneath your groin. You're gonna step out. The further out you step, the more you're gonna create tension, and recruitment's gonna be harder. all right? Feet under your hips. Grabbing the band, I like 2 hands with an underhand grip. Squeezing glutes at the pelvis. All you're gonna do is let the band pull you back. Now, obviously, if you're not feeling it, if you're not feeling enough tension, like, I can't really feel the band pull me back, just step out further. So all you're gonna do, let the band pull you back, and it's gonna lower you down naturally into this position that we want, the horizontal torso, the vertical shins. It kind of creates the position instead of forcing your athlete into it through kind of grabbing them and cueing them. It kind of does everything for you without you having to say a word. Now, it may not work, and obviously standing up, squeezing the glutes, same cues apply. So, next progression. This is when we start adding external load. So we can grab a dumbbell. I grab 1 dumbbell because it gives less, instead of 2, because 2 is slightly more complex. You have 2 sensory points to focus on. So instead, starting with 1 dumbbell, all you're gonna do, and this sets up the foundation of the barbell deadlift. Same setup position, pushing the hips back, rolling the dumbbell down your thigh as you keep a minimal knee bend. As you get to the knee, small hold. And what I'm doing, I can squeeze the dumbbell here, and I can pull the dumbbell into me. So I'm teaching that basic position to get lat recruitment and back recruitment. Stand up, squeeze, pulling the dumbbell into me, making sure it doesn't come away from me. Now, you can apply the same thing to 2 dumbbells here, slightly more complex, or you can use it as a variation on its own. Now we're gonna go over to the barbell. How are you gonna set it up? Thumb grip away from the smooth, feet underneath your hips. You notice I kicked my shoes off. I should have been doing that the whole time. If you guys see my post on why I prefer training barefoot, you know why that answer. You know why I took them off. Now, squeeze the glutes, set stability through the pelvis. Set a neutral pelvis. Squeeze the bar together, create a brace, and obviously you can also create a brace on all the other regressions we did before. I'd typically teach a brace outside off the platform. Now, same principle applies to the dumbbell. You're gonna push your hips back as you roll down, squeeze the bar together. You're holding the brace. You can hold the breath. I have to talk because I have to cue. I'm pulling the bar into you the whole time. Hold, stand up, squeeze. Control down, hips go back. Hold, squeeze the bar together. Exhale, stand up, squeeze. Intent to move the bar is very important for recruiting high threshold, fast twitch motor units. You train slow, you get quick. Wait, no. You train slow, you get slow. You train quick, you get quick. Very important. The progressions from here, you can do a rack pull where you set pins up. For brevity of this video, I will not be showing that variation, but you can do rack pull from the thigh, knees, or shins as progressions. Then what we can do is we can do a kettlebell, because we're progressing to the floor now, right? So we're starting from the top down approach. So now we're at a barbell, we're doing eccentrically and concentrically loading. A rack pull is just concentrically loading, so it can be a variation as well as a regression or progression depending on the individual. And then from here, okay, what if we want to work up to a conventional deadlift? Well, now we can go over to the kettlebell, which allows us to get into it's a very accessible position. Actually, I'll just show you, let's go. Next progression to pulling from the floor, we could either go to a trap bar deadlift right now, high handles then low handles, or if you could also splice it in and do a kettlebell, sumo kettlebell deadlift. So with the sumo kettlebell deadlift, you typically have a wide stance, and I'm taking this from Pavel Tsatsulo's Strong First company, who's the pioneer of kettlebells to the West. So I'm gonna have it in the middle, center of my body, hands just in front of me. I'm gonna push my hips back, same again, and I'm gonna reach for this kettlebell here. Then I'm gonna, now typically you might see a more quad dominant pattern for the kettlebell deadlift, and I'm pulling it back here because I'm not in the best position. I want to keep it about close to my center of mass, but not too far under, otherwise it's too far away under my mass. So approximately under my shoulders. I can dictate the hip position here. I can raise the hips up, create a more horizontal torso. If I want more quad dominant, I'm going to sit my hips back more and be able to lift heavier weight because it's more quad dominant. Now, here, squeeze, set the brace, stand up, squeeze, drop down. Reset, rebrace, stand up, squeeze. Notice my position. This is the position I also squat in, feet angled out. Some people may prefer a more neutral stance. For me, and for most people, I think the wider angled stance works to create a little more space in the hips, a little more space for the movement. And what you can do here is then you can do a suitcase deadlift where you can pull both from the side. You have 2 kettlebells sitting next to each other, same principle applies. Or you can pull this from blocks or from plates underneath if you can't access its range or you're really tall, got long levers. From there, you can then work to a trap bar, or you could start at a trap bar, like I said, high handles, low handles, flipping it around to give you a slightly more challenging variation. And then we could progress. This is like if you want to be super conservative, giving you all the linear progressions. Then you could go to a sumo barbell deadlift, which obviously decreases the range of motion being in a sumo position. And then you could go off plates, or not on plates, from the ground, or you could go straight to the conventional where you have a barbell deadlift, which I've explained in another video, which you may or may not have seen on my page. So that is the progression from the ground of all the hinge progressions from the ground. Well, most of them, or a lot of them, not all of them, from the ground, from kneeling all the way to pulling load from the ground-based position. So I hope that's resourceful for you guys, and Smitty and Joe, I hope that is thorough enough for you guys. I'm sure it is. Thank you. We're going to start in what's called Tadasana, mountain pose, standing tall, feet underneath the hips. You're going to reach towards the sky, swing your arms back into a chair pose or into this half squat, quarter squat position, quad dominant movement. Then we're going to reach forward, touching the floor, widen our feet into this wide squat position. Then Cossack squat. We're going to extend that leg, feel a big stretch through the adductor group, and then go the opposite way. You can also lift that toe as well. So I'm linking dynamic movements into a flow here. Then I'm going to come into an inchworm. I'm going to walk my hands forward, and then I'm going to bring my feet together, bring the foot towards the hand. You can drop the knee as well if this is too much. And then I'm going to open into a twist. So here we're getting a thoracic rotation here, and repeat. I'm going to swap legs, and obviously I'd stay here you could just hang out here for like 30 seconds, but for the purpose of the flow, we're just going to hang out here for 5 to 10 seconds, and then we're going to come back. From this position, you can either drop to your knees. I'll give you the first progression, drop to your knees, and just do a simple push-up plus scapular retraction, scapular protraction, reteaching the shoulder blades how to move correctly. Or you could come onto a plank position and do the same thing. A great prep if you're going to do any upper body pushing, pulling, or upper body movements. From here, you're either going to lower down on your knees, or from a full body position, you're going to squeeze your glutes, rotate your hands into the floor. So look, screw your hands into the floor to create torque through your shoulders. You're going to lower down, elbows come on a 45-degree angle, slow eccentric, then an isometric hold if you can hold it. And then you're going to lower down directly to the floor. From here, you're going to do a chest lift, extend the arms into a Y position, and then do what's called a black burn. So you're going to imagine, well, you're going to put your hands back like you're getting handcuffed as you squeeze your glutes, stabilize the hips into the floor, and you're going to rotate back. So you can do this in repeated motion, or you could just hold there and just do one rep. You're going to bring the hands forward, then you're going to lift yourself up into a bear crawl position. So what we're going to do now, it's a contralateral movement. So as one hand moves, the opposite leg moves. So it's left hand, right knee, right hand, left knee. So we're walking slowly, trying to keep the knees close to the ground. This is a full body movement that will recruit multiple muscle groups throughout the body. So this is really the carpe diem, right? This is the most effective movement that we're going to finish with, to not only get activation, but also coordination and focus and attention. It's just a kind of way to physically prepare our minds and to have a present state awareness in the movement, because a bear crawl is something you can't do lazily. You don't want those hips tipping side to side. You want to move with stability, purpose, and dynamic motor control, and you can't do that if you're not focused and if you're not present into every intricacy of the movement. So that's a flow you can do at the start of a warm-up, or at the start of a asana sequence at home, or even if you're a yoga teacher, to warm up the body, increase body and muscle temperature, while taking multiple joints through their accessible ranges of motion to adequately prepare yourself for the forthcoming higher intensity movements. Here's what it is. You get into a quarter squat position, or even a parallel position if you can hold it. You're going to come out into this pal-off press, so we're getting core activation, anti-rotation. And then crab walk. So now we're getting glute activation. Then you can go out again, or you can get anti-extension. You can drive up and back down. You can come on a diagonal and back down and then repeat. You can even walk forward and do a little monster walk. There are a lot of variations you can do with this. You can do one hands, but you gotta be super stable. And obviously that wasn't right there. So be careful with the one hands. And you come back, I'm just gonna keep that in because you gotta put your mistakes in. So obviously with one hand, it's a lot harder to maintain that position. So if you want a higher challenge and stimulus, then you can add that in. One very important point, you wanna start high, then progress lower. It's this idea of, can we stabilize in a more challenging position, more hip flexion, deeper down, more quad dominant, more challenging? Can we stabilize and keep our position regardless of the depth we're going? So as you progress and feel more comfortable, you warm up more, then the goal would be to eventually get to parallel, or maybe even lower depending on your individual status. Get to parallel and still be able to maintain these positions with form, with good intra-abdominal pressure. And I want to add another one. Usually you drop the band down low, you can add a rotation as well, like a lateral rotation. That's another one to add to the list. So it's talking about addressing this poor pelvic tilt position, anterior pelvic tilt position that we get into during these movements. So pre-activating can help address that, create awareness through the body, give us kinesthetic sensory feedback, so then we're better prepared for the forthcoming movements that we're about to do, the loaded movements. If you only have 2 minutes or even 1 minute, all you need is a band, 2 bands, and that's it. It's one of my favorite activation drills right now, thanks to Chris Dekanis. We're gonna break down the 10-yard, 10-meter sprint setup position. I got my soccer athlete here, George. Something we emphasize a lot. So there's an acronym here we use, PAL, posture, arm drive, leg drive. So I want to get George in the best position possible to produce as much force as possible and be as quick and accelerate out with as much speed and power as physically possible. And so that is required. We need to put him in a good position. So George, to set up, I want you to get in a 2-point start here. So I'm going to get that lead leg to be the most powerful, the one they feel strongest in. He already knows, he's already in it because I've shown him. Lean over into this 45-ish degree angle because that lean is very correlated to acceleration and kind of the optimal-ish position that we want in order to accelerate out, say for example, of the blocks in a sprint, which is where that kind of position comes from, or on the field. Lean 45, you see his arms are on this cheek-to-cheek position. So his front arm is at a right angle. I don't mind the back arm slightly extended because often in the acceleration phase, when the arm is into the backswing phase, you're not always going to get that right angle. That's more top end speed. So I don't mind that heavy, long extended arm. That often helps propel the athlete. Now, feet are on railway tracks approximately. Comfortable hip width apart. George, stand up for a second because he's been there all day. But actually, I omitted something. Before we do any of that, we need to teach them how to de-accelerate and slow down. I'm not just going to get them sprinting top speed when they don't even know how to slow down safely and effectively. So, George, I want you to do that. What I want you to do, George, we've been working on this. When you're just going to come into a jog right here. You're going to jog, choppy feet, come into this lunge position. So when you slow down, your feet come together and then hold that lunge position, opposite arm, opposite leg. Very good, stop there. Knee doesn't want to touch the floor, so do that again. So what's great about, go again, George. What's great about, hold there. What's great about this position is that it's a split squat position. So we're going to develop, it's like a unilateral movement in itself. So stand up. Instead of always doing a bilateral kind of deceleration, we can get a split stance, which is going to mimic another shape that we're going to be in on the field or on the court. Because athletic movements, the majority of them are unilateral, 1 foot up, 1 foot down. That's what sprinting is. So that's what we're mimicking right here. Now, back here, George, we also get that front 45-degree land to preload the quads as he's pushing through the ground, all right? On my call, I want you to imagine pushing through the ground and driving your knees through to the wall. Go. Now, one more thing I want to add. This is probably one of the best positions that I've found to improve acceleration and the positioning of acceleration, especially knee drive. So George, I want you to get into that plank position we were doing before. So instead of start flat on the ground. Typically we start them here. You do like a cat and mouse chase game. You have another person in front, you chase them, it helps improve acceleration and teach the kids, it stops the kids from overstriding. That's great. Come back into the plank position though. What I found is that this can get the foot right under the hip and into kind of a more repeatable, accurate position that I really prefer to starting on the ground. So get your hips up a little higher, squeeze your glutes. On my call, he's going to drive that front foot forward. It's going to land in front of the ground. And he's going to push off, just like before, George, right? On my call, go, push. Good. So the emphasis is on, as soon as that foot comes forward, he's almost leaping through. Instead of coming here, you see guys do these ones. You see these choppy steps to start with, which often happens, especially if they have poor motor control. You're gonna see these ugly choppy steps where the plank position, even for a guy like George, relatively inexperienced and not very strong through his hips and legs, can still get into that really nice knee drive, that good lean acceleration position that we want to produce as much force into the ground and get these kids faster. So that is acceleration. I don't want to say acceleration 101, but that's a quick little 5 minutes into acceleration, breaking down the position. Obviously, you can also go against the wall and do different positions to emphasize posture. Arm drive, which we can do just standing here, cheek to cheek. We can lean against the wall and get single leg drives into the wall. Some people like that. Me, it's not for me, but it might work for you. But try this out. This is a great that's one of my favorites that I found, and I'll tag the coach I got it from to improve acceleration, especially for your novice/juniors who need all the little tricks and tips that they can get. Hope that's valuable. Thank you, George.